Hey, what's up guys? My name is Del074. Today is going to be my Warthunder video on the current Normandy D-Day event going on right now. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about arcade battles as pertains to ground forces. Hopefully though, if you're playing a different game mode, you can find some of my information useful to you. So anyway, the reason for why I'm making this video is because yesterday I managed to grind out most of the missions done and get most of the achievements for the D-Day anniversary. As you can see, I already have the Hurricane camouflage, and I'm well on my way to working towards the Typhoon camouflage. Now for the allies, I have most of the missions done, and for the Axes, I've completed all of them. Now, just in case if you didn't know what the missions were for the event, they are as follows. You have to destroy 60 player-controlled vehicles in total. You have to gain 15 victories of a high enough battle activity. You have to destroy 8 player-controlled vehicles in a single battle, which actually isn't too difficult to do. And finally, you have to gain 2,000 score in 10 battles, win or lose. Again, to get the camouflage, you have to get first place in the team 8 times, and same for aircraft. Now, you don't actually have to win those missions. However, if you do win those missions, you can work towards a current emblem on the week's latest called the Emblem of the 319th Division of Israel Defense Forces. If you win 10 missions, gain first place in the team, you can earn this emblem. Good thing about it is that you can earn it during the event. So if you follow some of my advice and instructions that I'll share, you can end up coming out of this video with a bunch of nice stuff and a bonus decal. Okay, so let's get started. Actually, quickly before I begin, I just wanted to give a quick explanation to why I think that you should be playing the event in arcade rather than RB to most quickly get all the achievements and missions done. Now, the first is kind of obvious. You have faster queue times and you have faster game times for arcade. So in the amount of time that you have to play, you can fit more arcade games in than RB. Bigger reason than that though is I'm not sure if they've patched it or not, but yesterday when I was playing, you were only getting accredited for 1 out of 8 instead of 2 out of 8. There's no ×2 modifier or ×3 for simulator for getting the first place in the team. So again, in RB, you were only getting 1 out of 8 rather than 2 out of 8 for missions played. So that means that it's going to take you the same amount of missions as first place in the team at the end in arcade and RB. So if you think about it, arcade's you're gonna have faster games, and you're simply gonna get this mission done faster. So unless you're really comfortable with RB over AB, I'd recommend that you play AB for the for grinding out the missions the quickest. However, a lot of the information I'm going to be sharing today can be used for RB and AB vice versa. So there's 3 countries that you can play as in the Normandy event. You have the Allies, which are America and the UK, and Germany. Really, to best play this out the fastest, I think it's going to be Germany that you want to go with here. Germany, it's kind of their dream. You get the Tigers, you get the Panther. They're all in a huge down tier. You have a really good supporting cast of tank destroyers and mediums in the Panzer IVs. You have 3 different types of AAA, all against the Americans who don't have a single 76mm Sherman. It's kind of obvious which one you want to go with to have it done quicker. However, if you want to play the Americans or Brits, I'm going to include those in the video as well, and I'm going to give you plenty of useful information on how to beat the Germans like they did historically. So let's actually start off with the Americans. Now, the Americans, you have 2 SPAA. You have the M15 and the M13. Now, both are relatively average SPA at their own BRs, but considering that you're going to be heavily up-tiered and possibly even facing jets in the air for arcade, none of these you really want to be taking out unless as a final reserve or as something to try and cap a zone with. So let's move on to the Shermans. Now you have right here the M4A1. As you can see, it's got a 75mm cannon with only about 65mm effective frontal armor. The turret's a little bit better, going up to 91mm of effective armor. Now, it's pretty good at its BR of 3.3, and it has a relatively decent gun at that BR. The problem is, again, this event isn't at 3.3 BR. You're at 5.7. You're against Panthers, you're against Tigers. This vehicle is the weakest of the Shermans, and it really shows. If you get shot center of mass in this thing, you're basically dead. You have tons of ammunition on the sides that you can't get rid of, and you have a relatively closely packed crew. Now, the difference for the M4 at slightly higher BR but still pretty under tiered is as follows. You have slightly better turret armor, added cast homogeneous armor. You have, I think, 106 millimeters thickness there. That's quite good, actually. Unfortunately, the same problem exists for the M4A1 and the M4 in total. Basically, you don't have the highest amount of armor. The M4A2 does have slightly better sloped armor at 82 to 84 millimeters of effective thickness, and if you have the final modification, you can get tracks added too. But realistically, guys, the German long 75 and the 88 millimeter on both the Tigers is going to punch right through this guy. Now, the biggest problem with these Shermans, though, is that they have relatively weak 75 millimeter guns. You don't want to be using their stock shot at all because it has only 90 millimeters of penetration at 10 meters. The German Tiger, as you will see very soon, actually has a frontal plate of 100 millimeters of thickness, meaning it's close to impossible to actually penetrate the Tiger frontally with the stock rounds. Now, the M48 HE is relatively useless unless used against tank AA. The M61 shot is actually what you want to be using. It has a pretty decent TNT equivalent and pretty decent muzzle velocity. It also has 103 millimeters of pen point blank. Now again, 103 versus 100 millimeters, it's going to be really hard to frontally penetrate any Tiger with this gun. So the idea for the Shermans is that you kind of want to play them as support tanks during this event. You want to look for really good flanks to go for the weaker German side armor. Now the M4A2 does get the one added bonus of getting APCR rounds, which can frontally pen the German Tigers, not the Panthers though. So you can penetrate their frontal armor. However, you have to be aiming for really good key spots, or else you might just bounce. And again, you don't have much protecting you in the end. You also have the Sherman 105, which I can show right here. The Sherman 105 millimeter was actually created not as an anti-tank role, but more of a infantry sport and anti-pillbox. It does not have an anti-tank gun. It has a high explosive shell, and it has an M67 heat shell. Now, this heat shell does have pretty decent penetration at 130 millimeters. However, it has a really, really low muzzle velocity of not even 400 meters per second. That means that this gun is going to be a really high arc if you're shooting, if you're trying to snipe with it. And again, it runs the problem of the other Shermans, in fact, that you have really, really low armor. 88 millimeters effective is nice at its tier 3.0, but that's going to do nothing again to the long 75 and the 88 millimeter of the German Tiger. Now, how to best use this tank? Again, it's going to be a support tank. You want to be looking for flanks. However, because of the heat, it's going to be much more difficult than using the M61 shot to try and hit critical modules. By critical modules, by the way, I mean stuff like ammunition, the engine, and the gun, and most importantly, the crew. So the final two vehicles that I'll be showing you that you can use for the Normandy mission for the Americans are as follows. You have the M10 tank destroyer, and you have the M4A3E2 Jumbo. Now the Jumbo, this is a lie. It has more than 38 millimeters of frontal armor. That is add-on armor to the around 76 millimeters of rolled homogeneous that it has on its side. That's where you get your true value of 101 millimeters of frontal armor. This is great. This means that, you know, you can actually have a chance of bouncing a German 88 or a Panther 75 millimeter gun from distance. Now, as long as that you're really careful not to get a really unlucky shot right through the machine gun port, you should be relatively safe from the front. This has made an even better tank at its BR when you go hull down. Now, the reason for hull down, if you don't know what it is when you go by a ledge, by a hill, and you aim like this with your gun pointing down. hence hull down. Now look at that frontal armor of the turret. It's got 178 millimeters right there on the mantlet. The turret 152 millimeters with an effective thickness of 310, meaning that any gun at that BR for the event is going to bounce right off right there. That mantlet right there, if you look at it, you can get all the way up to 500 millimeters over of frontal thickness. So that means it's going to be really, really unlikely that you're going to take a direct shot to the mantlet and get killed. In fact, you are much more likely for the bullet to somehow stay intact, ricochet off the mantlet straight down into your top rolled homogeneous armor. That's a really kind of a 1 in 1,000 shot. You don't have to be too worried about that. If you're hull down in this tank from the front, you're actually safe. Now, the problem with this tank though is that you can't stay hull down if you want your team to win. If you're an American tank, you have to be at the front. You are the heavy of this nation. You have to be there to respond to the Tiger swarm. So that means that you gotta go forwards. You gotta go into the city. You gotta go into the spots where it's going to be dangerous. Now, one thing to keep in mind about the armor is that you are shorter than the Tiger, and if really close, and if angled at a bad angle, or if the Tiger's pointing straight down at you with its gun right here, it can punch through this frontal armor. Because since you aren't sloped enough, it's only going to count as 101 millimeters, and you can bounce right through. However, if you are decently far away from the Tiger, at around just over 10 meters, that Tiger won't penetrate you. So again, don't go at a weird angle towards the Tiger. Don't go right next to them either. It might be tempting because you might think he's out of commission, but you're just putting yourself in an unsafe spot. Now, how to take these things out and how you will get taken out in these tanks? Well, it's quite simple. The sides. The side armor, 76 millimeters. It's good, but it's not going to stop a direct shot from an 88 millimeter or 75 millimeter German gun. Now, where to shoot the jumbo to take it out? You don't really want to go right for the turret because it does have 100 millimeters of armor protecting it. However, if you shoot kind of center of mass here, you can take out at least 2 out of 3 crew. That would be the commander, the gunner, or the loader. Or if you shoot down here, you get that nice juicy ammo rack. That ammo rack does have a little bit of protection, but if you shoot right there with an APHE APHE round, from a German gun, you should be able to kill this thing. You can also kill this thing with the 75 too from really close range with the M61 shot. Now, if you can't take it out with a direct shot to the ammunition, you want to shoot either the engine back here, the track there at the front, or even the driver machine gunner right there. So it should take from the side at least 1 shot, maybe 2 shots if unlucky, to destroy the M4A3 Jumbo with the APHE rounds. You want to shoot it right there, or right there. Again, how it looks, you want to shoot engine, ammunition, turret crew, or driving crew. Okay, let's move on to the M10. And finally, you have the M10 GMC tank destroyer. This is, in my opinion, the best vehicle to use for the Americans in the Normandy event, and it's one of my favorite tanks in the entire American tree. Now, the reason for why this M10 is so good is because at 3.7 BR, it's got access to the 76mm M7 cannon. This was the American-made anti-tank cannon that would later be used to upgun the M4 Shermans, would later be used on the EZ8, and would later be used to upgun the 76mm Jumbo. Now, this gun, let's see why it's so good. Stock, you have access to the APHE M62 shell. You have 148mm of penetration at point blank. You have a muzzle velocity of almost 800 meters per second. And you have quite a decent amount of explosive TNT mass. This gun, this shell, if you get a really good flank, if you get a shot onto a critical module, you can get a one-shot kill in this. This is a really good tank to be using. I wouldn't even use the APCR armor on this because you actually are giving up a lot of the explosive power, and as this doesn't have any, it just has regular shell spalling, and this actually has less shell penetration, 134 versus 148, as you can see again. So if I'm using this M10 GMC, I'm going to be using my role as a tank destroyer. I'm going to be using the shell that will help me best destroy tanks. That's the M62 shell. Now, the problem with this vehicle, though, is that it runs the problem of the early Shermans. It's got really ineffective armor. At 3.7 even, it's not even that great. It's always been a glass cannon. However, at the 5.7 BR of the event, it's going to get penned right through by anything. Even on the sides, you're at risk to AA. You also have an open top, so that means that any aircraft strafing you becomes a potential danger of losing one or two crew from the turret. Now, so what do you want to do? You have an amazing gun, but you have not so amazing armor. So you want to play this as a hidden assassin. You want to look for the best flanks. You want to look for opportunities to get on the sides of people. You want to look for opportunities to shoot first and not be seen. It can be difficult to play. If you're playing on AB, which I'm recommending, you have very little stealth unless you know how to properly maneuver yourself across the map. It can be difficult in that sense. In RB, it can also be difficult because you don't have an aim assister. You don't know exactly where to shoot. You're kind of shooting for center of mass. Now, on the sides, that might just work. But if you're shooting center of mass on a frontal 100mm Tiger, it can be difficult. You might bounce. So, what you want to do? Play as an assassin on this. You want to play as a tank destroyer. Play as if anything can kill you, but you can kill anything. Finally, also we have the Cobra King, but that's a premium version of the Jumbo. It offers the exact same thing as the other Jumbo. Now let's move on to the German tree. So I've made it no secret that if you want to win the fastest, if you want to most quickly get the missions done, get all your achievements done for ground battles, you're going to be wanting to play Germany. Specifically, you're going to be wanting to play the two Tigers, the Tiger E and the Tiger H1, and the Panther D. Now, to look quickly at the German vehicles available, you do have access to more than just those. You have access to two quite good support tanks in the Panzer IVs. These are medium tanks, which are quite good with the 75mm gun. However, unless you don't have any one of the three aforementioned tanks, you don't really want to be using those. These are more of a fair matchup for the Shermans and the Jumbo, and you don't want to be doing a fair matchup. You're going to be competing half the time against your own teammates who have these same three lineup of tanks. You're going to be competing for that number one spot, so you're going to be using the best vehicles, in my opinion. Now, the Jagdpanzer IV deserves a special mention. It's quite a good tank with a very low profile. Let's see if I can pick it up really here. Yeah, the Jagdpanzer IV. Good tank, low profile, decent frontal armor as well. It can bounce a turret shot right there. However, against the Germans, the 75mm and the 88mm of the Tiger, they're going to go right through, right here. Where to shoot this guy, by the way? You want to shoot him right here with your APHE ammo. It's going to kill 1, 2, 3. If he has a modification for crew replenishment, he might survive. And you shoot him right there, right after. 2 shots, this guy's done. Or 1 shot on the side. Anyway. However, let's talk about quickly the German AA. So you have the... Oh, I can't even say this, so I'm not going to try it. But you have the truck AA. This one is not really good in an anti-tank role. In the anti-aircraft role, it's not bad. However, the problem is that it can very easily be strafed. As you can see, it's got 3 out of 4 crew right in the open, right here. Any fighter plane that sees you, you're going to be a target. So, best not to play this one or the Gepard. The Gepard is nice, but it's more of an anti-tank rather than anti-air, even though, yes, it is considered SPAA. Again, this has only 1 crew member outside, totally open. The tank that you want to be playing for AA in the Germans is going to be the Wirbelwind. Wirbelwind is one of my favorite tanks. I even have the winter camouflage right here. And although it does have an open top, it has a little bit of protection from the top. It's got decent armor right there, and it covers. All the guys inside are decently far apart. and underneath a little ledge. It also has access to some of the best ammunition in the game, the Panzer D 40. It's got 64 millimeters of pen, even after the nerfs. This is really good. You can even use this as an anti-tank to go take out your own M10s. Yeah, this is the vehicle that you want to be using for SPAA, and I think, in my opinion, is the best SPAA available in the event. And so, since you've been waiting so patiently, I'm going to get right to it. The top 3 vehicles in the event available are all German. They are the Tiger H1, the Tiger E, and the Panther D. They're all at the same BR 5.7, and the 2 Tigers, they have access to the extremely strong 88mm anti-tank German gun. Now, the Tiger H1, as I can say from personal experience, it is the goal of every German tanker to, at least when first starting off the line, to get towards the Tigers. They are that renowned, and as good as they were in real life, they're even better in game. They are really the top cat. Now, the problem with the Tigers, though, for the event is simply there's going to be a lot of them. There's going to be a lot on your team, and there's going to be a lot on the enemy team. So we got to learn, as a Tiger, how do we kill other Tigers, right? How do we be the best on the battlefield so we can get all the achievements, all the trophies that we want, all that. So let's look first at the gun. The 88mm gun has access to 4 different ammunition types. However, I really only recommend using the first 2. The heat simply doesn't have that high of a muzzle velocity and a lack of penetration. And the HE, it's overkill. You already have access to APHE. This one especially you should be using if you want to use for lightly armored vehicles. Now, I'll tell you the difference between the 2 APHE ammo types, the 39 and the Mod 1 Panzergranate regular. The 39 has the extra 11mm of pen at close range. However, the Mod 1 has the extra muzzle velocity and more explosive mass. So I personally use the 39. I feel that if I know where to hit, I have enough explosive filler to reliably one-shot a tank or at least cripple it. And I feel that the extra penetration helps me in surgically sniping where I want to shoot on the enemy tank, surgically sniping their modules. Now, if you're feeling less confident, or if you want to more rely on the one-shot potential of the 88mm gun, I'd recommend using this module ammunition. You have less penetration, however, again, you trade that for the explosive mass. This thing, you really want to be aiming for near center of mass, near modules, and enjoy the kills that you rack up in this. Now, how to kill the Tiger. So, we have our 88mm gun that we're going to be using. Remember, it has either 160mm or 153mm of penetration. Now, this can go right through the 102mm of frontal armor at close range. So this means that, although the Tiger is largely impenetrable to the lesser allied tanks in the event, the Tiger can still be killed. The Tiger is not immortal to other Tigers. So, we want to shoot it right here in the middle or on the sides. Why? I'll show you right here. So if we shoot right in the middle, we actually shoot right into the middle of the crew. This is going to explode with our APHE ammo, and we're going to ammo rack. We're going to take out a whole bunch of crew, if not directly one shot. If we shoot on the sides right here with only 100mm of armor, well, even by taking half ammunition like I normally do, I still can't get rid of this ammo rack. So if we shoot either of the sides, we're going to hit an ammo rack. We have a very good chance, if not directly crippling the tank, to completely one-shot it. Now, since that's the best place to shoot the Tigers, a place where I would not recommend shooting the Tigers. Wouldn't recommend shooting them in the glacis because the transmission underneath is going to block a lot of the shot. You might kill a driver or machine gun or both if you're lucky, but the problem with that is that he's going to have a shot on you, and he might not miss with his shot. So, I also wouldn't really aim for the turret. This has a pretty strong mantlet of 135mm, but it has a really high chance of bouncing. As you can see, I've just gone over not even a centimeter, and I've already got an effective thickness above the punching weight of the Tiger. However, if I were to shoot the Tiger H1, I would go for the turret. I would shoot up here. I would shoot at the commander's hatch. It's got only about 80 millimeters of armor. You want to go for a nice top-down shot where you shoot the APHE ammo in. The APHE explodes. It takes out the commander, takes out the gunner, likely the gun, and if you're quite skilled, you can hit this ammo rack and actually one-shot it from the top. So, in theory, it's actually it's a possibility to one-shot the Tiger by shooting right here with a very powerful gun. Now, again, this Tiger is a really good tank. I'm going to show you guys quickly as a treat a way to improve the structural stability of your Tiger and to maybe hopefully keep you alive and help you win those games. Now, see this armor? When I have 100 millimeters facing towards you, if I face this corner towards my enemy, imagine if my enemy is right here. Now I've effectively raised my armor thickness to 120 millimeters, all the way down to 150, and on the side, 160 all the way down to over 200 millimeters. So, to conclude, when I'm in the Tiger H1, if I'm in a head-on fight versus another Tiger or another similarly strong tank like the Jumbo, I want to be aiming the corner of my tank, not the front of my tank, towards them. That way I have the best survivability and I already have the better gun. So to continue now, we're going to talk about the Tiger E. So the Tiger E is mostly the same as the H1, but has a few slight improvements to make it just as terrifying as a tank. In fact, it used to be a 6.0 battle rating in AB before it got dropped down to 5.7 like the other Tiger. Now, I'll show you the differences quite quickly. It has track armor on the upper glacis, so that gives it an extra 30 millimeters of armor there. However, already told you we don't want to be shooting for that area. We want to be shooting for above. It also has right here in the turret an extra 140 millimeters of thickness on the gunner sight, which I like to hide behind a bush. And here, finally, the largest difference between the Tiger E and the Tiger H1 is the commander cupola. It's much smaller and much more difficult to hit and penetrate on the Tiger E. So, in fact, when looking at the two, that's the difference, the Tiger H1 and the Tiger E with the smaller cupola. Now, since they're the same tank, I'm also going to be telling you how to kill Tigers from the sides. Now, the armor on the sides is only about 82 millimeters. The turret is around the same with modification of protective armor on the side. Now, where to shoot the Tiger? Let's go into X-ray mode for the modules. Huge ammo racks right on the side, right here. If we can, we want to shoot slightly above center of mass or slightly below. Shooting right through, you do run the risk of going right through and maybe not one-shotting everybody. But if you shoot right here or right down there, you should get it. A shot to the engine or the track will take out the mobility of the Tiger, as well as shooting the driving crew, the machine gunner and the driver right there. Shooting the turret, although risky, you can penetrate through and you can destroy at least 2 of the 3 of the gunnery crew. Finally, the last difference that the Tiger E has over the Tiger H1 is that the Tiger E has an extra ammunition type available. It has the APCR Panzergranat 40. This has a maximum of 220 millimeters of penetration close range. However, it does have, as you can see, an angle of deflection of 70 degrees about. At 72 degrees, it has a 100% of ricochet. So with this gun, with the APCR, you can frontally pen that pesky Jumbo that you might have had to aim for a specific weak spot or not. However, it can be risky. If you shoot it off slightly, you can bounce right off of him. Even though your gun should have gone through, technically it doesn't because of the way that it hits. Since it's an APCR round, it has a higher chance of bouncing when it hits a very angled part of the tank. That's really the only difference between the Tiger E and the Tiger H1, though, and they're both fantastic tanks to be using. So the Panther, in a way, is more strongly armored and less armored than the Tiger, and I'll explain to you why quickly now. So you got the 75mm gun, pretty similar penetration. Here you have no APCR rounds. I would stick mainly with the 75mm gun. However, you have really high penetration of 191 millimeters at 10 meters with a really high muzzle velocities coming from the long 75mm gun, you don't have a lot of explosive mass. So you have enough, but this thing you more want to be aiming strategically for modules. The good thing is you have more than enough penetration to go through anything in this event. Now let's look at the armor. Again, it is more strongly armored than the Tiger in the front. Although it has only 80mm of frontal armor, this is angled at 120mm of effective thickness. This came from the Germans fighting the Soviets in the eastern front of the war, fighting against the T-34 tanks. They took this their frontal sloped armor and they adapted it towards their Panthers. Now, in terms of shooting the transmission, you can do that through the lower glacis. However, it's not too great of an idea. The transmission is going to soak up a lot of your damage, and you might kill the driver or the machine gunner, giving the Panther with the long 75 a chance to kill you. Now, the best way to frontally take out the Panther is as follows. First, you want to make sure that either through it being preoccupied or by you shooting the track that it's not going to move and it's not going to shoot at you. So by not moving first, now you got to make sure that it won't shoot back. So you want to shoot it right here through the right side of the turret mantlet, going for the gunner and the commander. And on the left side, you have the loader. Now the armor values are about roughly 100mm of turret armor, at least in the front. Over here, 110mm in the cupola again. So you can penetrate that with the long 75, the 88mm of the Tigers, and the 76 of the M10 GMC. Now, to properly take out this tank, it's going to take a few more shots than normal, but it's as follows. You want to take out either a track or a transmission, then you want to shoot the commander or gunner, then you want to shoot the loader, and at this time he will have only 2 out of 5 crew, hopefully. So from there, you can easily flank as he'll be likely disabled, or you can shoot again at the gunner commander once they've finished the crew replenishment. Now, in terms of armor, the Panther, although a formidable opponent, from the front, is quite weak on the sides. It's very similar to the M10. It's got not a lot of armor. It's only got 40mm of hull armor and turret armor on the sides. So modules on where to shoot, well, you can obviously shoot the gunnery crew up here. You can shoot the ammo racks right in the middle, center of mass. Be careful not to shoot too low, as you'll miss the majority of ammo racks and might even miss taking out one of the crew. And in terms of shooting the movement modules, you can shoot the engine, you can shoot the tracks, and you can shoot the machine gunner and the driver crew right here. So that's how you take out the Panther. Now, why I use the Panther and when I use it, I personally use the Panther as my first tank into the battle. You can reach very close to your top speed of 61 kilometers an hour. It's going to average out to maybe about 46 or something or so. But long story short, you're going to be able to use this as a very fast vehicle to go and rush the cap with, especially if it's only a single cap mission. Getting to the cap is going to be really important for getting the points, getting the score required to get the number 1 in the win, which I know you want for the achievement, for the decals, for the camouflages, etc. So this Panther is faster than the Tigers. It's more able to rush the cap and better able to defend it, at least while there. Until the Tigers get there, they're not going to be defending the cap. They're going to be more of a supportive role at first into the battle. Now, the only other tanks that can beat you are the light tank from the M8 in the Americans and some of the British Cromwells. However, with your 75mm gun and your near impervious frontal armor to them, you're going to have an easy time taking them down at the cap, hence more points for you. So this is to conclude. I think that the Tiger E, and the Panther D lineup is the best lineup to be taking for Germany. If you have the option to use all 3 vehicles, you should utilize. Wait, before I end the video, I will quickly cover the Brits. I promised I'd cover all 3 nations, so here they are. The 4 vehicles that I'd most recommend for taking for the Brits in the event are the Crusader Mark A, the Achilles, the Sherman Firefly, and the Churchill Mark 8. So the Crusader Mark 1 is possibly the best AA that you can use as the allied team. However, in terms of taking down planes, it's okay, it's BR, but it's not the best. One good thing that it does have going for it is it's got a max speed of 47 kilometers an hour, meaning that in a pinch, at the end of the game, if this is your last tank, you can use it to effectively get to a cap really fast and cap it and hopefully turn the tide and win the game for your team. Now, the Achilles is a copy of the American M10, however, it has the 76mm Q17 British gun. Now, it's a good time quickly to talk about British tank doctrine and the difference between Brits and Americans and other trees is that the Brits mainly use solid shot. They didn't use APHE ammo. They didn't even really use HE ammo. This HE ammo is mostly garbage. With AP CBC ammo, you have 190 millimeters of pen, meaning you have a lot of penetration, and you have a very high muzzle velocity. However, the difficulty with this is that you don't have the APHE filler inside, meaning that unless you hit directly on a module or a crew member, your shot's not going to do much besides SPAA inside. So it can be risky taking that shot for center of mass with the Brits. With the Brits, you have to really learn precision. You have to learn where to shoot. You have to learn how can I best take out enemy tanks in the fastest way. They're really like the hard mode of Warthunder arcade. Really, it takes a dedicated and almost masochistic tanker to play the British line, in my opinion. So, now you have the Sherman Firefly, same gun as the Achilles, however, same old M4 armor. Again, not bad, designed to fight the Tigers, but it's not really the best at going toe-to-toe. I'd definitely use it though if I'm playing the Brits. And finally, you have the Churchill Mark 8. Churchill Mark 8 for 5.7 BR is severely undergunned. It only has a 75, which 75mm, even with this highest M61 APCB BC armor piercing bullet, only has 106mm of penetration. So frontally, it's a real chore to penetrate those Tigers. Now, frontally, you are quite good yourself. You have 152mm there and 152mm there. However, you have a big weak spot right here on the glacis behind the track. You only have effectively about 120mm of frontal armor right there. So if anyone's smart, they'll shoot you right through here. They'll kill your driver, they'll kill your machine gunner, and they'll likely even ammo rack you. So that's where I would shoot to kill the Churchill from the front. Also, you have a really, really bad issue with the Churchill in the sense that it is one of the easiest tanks in the game to track. So you shoot the track right here, which are way out in the open and relatively unguarded, and this thing is parked. You're not going to be moving it, and you can easily flank it for a side shot. Where to kill the Churchill? Well, fuel tanks and the ammo racks with APHE or even a solid shot are likely to one-shot the tank. To kill the movement, besides killing the track, you can kill the transmission and the driver crew right here. Don't shoot too far up or else you'll only get a track. Shooting the turret crew, you want to shoot slightly above the ammunition. In fact, with an APHE ammunition type, by shooting for the ammo and the fuel tank, you'll likely kill these guys too. And yeah, that kind of wraps up the British tree. There is the Churchill Mark III and the Churchill Mark 1, but I don't think you can use the Churchill Mark 1, and the Mark III is just a less armored version of the Mark 8. There's also the Cromwell right here, which is not bad. There's two available. Again, same crappy gun as the Churchill Mark 8, so it means that you're going to have trouble penetrating stuff. However, the one thing that the Cromwell does have going for it is it's got a relatively low profile, so it can sneak around slightly better than most of the other tanks. And it's got a very high fast speed of 72 kilometers an hour. So it means that if you take this tank out, you can likely get to a cap before almost anybody except for another Panther. Well, this wraps up the end of my video for the Normandy Arcade Battles event for Ground Forces. I'm Del074. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like or a comment down below if you enjoyed or if you learned something new from my video. Thanks guys, best of luck out there.